Thanks, Joe. My name's Lee. I'm an alcoholic. And it's good to be here. I'd like to, first of all, thank Joe and Doug, this year's chairperson, for the invitation, and the committee as well. Also, Ed and his wife, Chris, for the hospitality, and my wife for making the drive up here with me. Also, it's great to see my sister, Penny P. It's like, she's not my real sister, but man, if I could have a sister, it would be Penny. If I could pick one, I'd want her to be my sister, and I'll maybe talk some more about her in a minute. But, you know, I'm still trying to figure out, was that, when Joe was talking about, was that impromptu or was that scheduled? I wasn't sure, you know, and it's like, those of you that know Joe, he's spiritual. Humble, too, isn't he? Yeah. Enthusiastic, too. Yeah, woo, yeah. Go, Joe, you know, yeah. It's like, never mind. Glad you're here, man. Yeah. My home group is, actually, I'm not sure anymore. I'm sort of swinging between two different men's groups. My home group forever has been the Tuesday night men's stag in Arroyo Grande. My sponsor is a man named Bob Darrell in Las Vegas. And my sobriety date is December 10th, 1987. Now, I share that. You're not nearly as impressed as I am, I'll tell you. Now, I share that for a few reasons. One, that's what I've been taught. My sponsor taught me to share those things, as did the woman who got up here and read the tradition. She shared her home group. My sponsor taught me to share those things, so I do. Two, I'm very proud of those three things. I'm proud of my home group. My home group is the best home group. Although, like I said, we started a new men's stag on Thursday night, closer to home, and it's sort of picking up, and that's sort of a good group, too. But I'm proud of both of those meetings. My sponsor, Bob Darrell, is the best sponsor in the world. Absolutely no question about it for me. I love that man, and he's saved me many times. He finishes sentences for me when I'm thinking crazy things, and he cares more about my sobriety than he does about my feelings, and that's important. There's a difference between having a sponsor and being sponsored, and I see there's a panel on it tomorrow, so maybe go check it out if you have any questions on sponsorship. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about it tonight. And the third reason that I share those three things is that I, too, go to a lot of speaker meetings, and I know what it's like to sit in the audience and wonder how much time the speaker got. All right. Well, now you know, December 10th, 1987. Those of you with less time than me, you'll pay attention, right? Those of you with more time than me, you'll evaluate everything I say. And those of you with about the same amount of time as me and Ed will criticize and condemn everything I say. I know, you know. Yeah, I catch on quick, don't I? December 10th, 1987, I woke up, I went to the front room, and I pulled down a fifth of whiskey I had opened the night before. And there was like a finger's width left in the bottom of it. And I looked at my wife and I said, "How much of this did you drink?" And she said, "None of it." And I said, "Damn it. I did it again. I had not intended to drink a fifth of whiskey. I had just taken my last final. I was going to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. Taking my last final, came home, going to get a little buzz, man. Not drink a fifth. So I made a few phone calls and found out where these AA meetings are, man. And I went to the noon book study that day, December 10th, at a Pioneer group in San Luis Obispo. I don't remember who was there, what was said, except for one person, and that's Jack L. And the reason I remember Jack, it was a book study. I don't remember what was read or any parts of it, but I remember Jack. And the reason I remember Jack is that he came up to me after the meeting and he put out his hand and he said, "Welcome." And he talked to me for a little while. And he tried to give me a big book, a hardcover, 3rd edition big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I wouldn't take it. I'm like, nah. And the reason I wouldn't take it is I was going to college at the time. Anybody else been to college? I was paying $60, $70 for books like that. And I figured AA was going to charge me $60, $70. And in school, you can sell them back at the end of the quarter. I figured AA wouldn't buy it back. So I wasn't going to take it, you know. And but somewhere along the line, Jack told me the deal, and I accepted that book from him. And now I carry big books in my trunk. We brought my wife's car up this time, but you know, I have big books in the trunk of my car. And when I go anywhere, if anybody doesn't have a book, I'll give them to them. You get them, or you can go yourself on eBay, or you can buy them in the back. You know, you steal them. No one really cares, you know. But you have to make amends later. But you know. But so I took that book, and he must have said something about sponsorship, Jack, and I said to Jack, well, what's a sponsor? And he told me what a sponsor is, and I said, well, will you be my sponsor? And he said, sure. So, at the end of my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I had a big book, and I had a sponsor. How many of you can say that? Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't call that sponsor or read that book for 5.5 years. Now how many people, 5.5 years, I was stark raving sober. Stark raving sober, man. I came here to not drink, and I was not drinking just fine, I'd occasionally get called on in a meeting, and I'd share something like, if you don't drink and you don't use, no matter how you do it, you're not wrong. And then they wouldn't call on me again. So I'd punish that meeting, and I'd quit going to it. And within a relatively short period of time, I wasn't going to many meetings because I was punishing them all. They're not going to call on me. I'm not going, man. 5.5 years of stark raving sober. And at 5.5 years of that, my wife came across some poetry I'd written. Some really dark poetry. It's dark. I mean, I'll admit it's dark. I like to write, I like writing. Maybe not inventories, but I like to write. And it's dark. It's not suicidal. I'm not a suicide kind of guy. I'm a homicide kind of guy. I'm gonna take you out. I'm gonna take somebody else out, not me. But the next day after my wife found that poetry, and this is one of our first miracles, the next day I was checked into the psych ward at French Hospital in San Luis Obispo. And the reason it's a miracle, two reasons. One is because I finally started doing work while I was in that psych ward. And two, because our health care provider was a health net, HMO, And usually with an HMO, to get checked into the hospital, you need a referral from one doctor to another doctor to a third doctor. And if it's an emergency, you're in a hospital in a week with an HMO. Not if your wife's pre-Al-Anon. She wouldn't take no for an answer, No. And the next day I checked into that psych ward, and I was in there for a few days, and I stayed up until 3 in the morning, and I got up at 6 in the morning, and I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. I brought a big book with me and a 12 and 12, and they had paper and they had pens or pencils, and I wrote. I did an inventory. It's a joke. Seriously, how bad that inventory is, it's a joke. It's terrible. It's a grudge list is what it is. Because remember, I'm not asking anybody for help. I'm not listening to what you say in meetings. I'm an accountant by trade. I know all about inventories. That's assets, liabilities. You count them up and they balance, and that's your inventory. What the hell's a plumber going to teach me about an inventory? Is how I felt. So I wasn't listening to anything. But in this psych ward, I followed the directions in the book on that page. I didn't go to page 67. I just looked at page 64, and I did that, and I went to the 12 and 12, and I answered the questions that were in there, and I did an inventory with that part of it. And then I also did it the way I always thought you're supposed to do it. I thought, again, remember, I'm not asking for help, and I'm not listening to anything you say. So I thought it was supposed to be columns of good things about yourself and bad things about yourself. That's what I thought. So I bit the bullet, and I did it. I wrote these columns of things that I felt about myself. And even then, at 5.5 years of stark raving sober, even then, the good things I felt about myself outweighed the bad. 3-1. I would have never guessed it if you'd asked me ahead of time, but even then it was 3-1. But there were two things on that negative side that had kept me all those years, and they're both in the big book. And that was fear and anger. Fear and anger. I was afraid of the world, and I used anger to keep everyone away. And when I looked at it, it made a lot of sense. I got out of that psych ward, got involved in service, and working the steps now and doing the deal, and became a whole new man, completely different person. But see, who had I been? It's a strange question. I don't remember my first drink. I envy you people that do. I don't. But when I go way back, there's a song that some of you guys might recognize, and it says, I build walls, a fortress deep and mighty, that none may penetrate. I have no need of friendship. Friendship causes pain. It's laughter and it's loving I disdain. I could relate to that. That's Paul Simon, I know. Yeah, that's what it was like for me. I hated people. I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want friends because friends will hurt me. If I let you get close to me, you're going to hurt me. So I wouldn't let anybody get close to me as a kid growing up. I haven't talked about it. There's some issues. My wife and I were talking on the drive up about what I was going to talk about. You never know. I just pray and let God take the words that it is, But I was an angry man, angry kid, angry child, and part of it was we moved every 2 years that I know of. Part of it that my mom was a single mom. I was raised on welfare. We never had enough money. Part of it was that my brother's dad was black, and to me, I never ever thought of my brother as anything other than my brother. But I guess to some people, and we lived for a while in Georgia, so back then in the early 70s, having that kind of a relationship wasn't cool, and people were always causing trouble with me, and I was always fighting and hitting people. And so I was angry growing up. And I don't remember my first drink. Like I said, I envy you people. I do know this though. I joined the military at 18. And the first year that I came back on leave for Thanksgiving, on vacation or leave, it's called from the military, my mom and I went to this place we always went every year for Thanksgiving. It's friends of hers. My mom is a very left-wing individual, absolutely, completely liberal to the max. My mom is so far left, she's a danger to oncoming traffic, man. So that's all her friends were like that. So we went over to this house where we went every year since I can ever remember. And I was in my military uniform, and I'd just been through basic training, so all propaganda was in my head. I was proud of who I was, proud of the military, and we're over at this liberal household. And they started teasing me about the military and about the uniform, and it didn't get to me. They didn't get to me. I was good. But then they said something that did, and what they said was, you look sharp in that uniform today. You didn't look so sharp that time when you were 5 years old. We gave you that hit of acid. You were tripping that day, man. And I was like, what? You gave me acid when I was 5 years old? Like, damn, I was angry about that for years. I was mad at my mom, so I did the work on it. I was angry. Now it's just part of my story. I was eating acid at 5. All right? I remember stealing 6 packs of beer out of the back of Thrifty drugstore in 6th grade. So that's 11, 12 years old. Schlitz malt liquor. You remember Schlitz malt liquor? I was talking about that one time. I was like, I don't even know if they make Schlitz malt liquor anymore. Newcomer's nodding his head. Yeah. Schlitz malt liquor and Southern Comfort, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, alcohol. Yeah, I love it. You meant to Southern Comfort in the AA meeting and everybody drools. Yeah. And, and when I matured, at 14, I switched deals and everything like that, but I switched liquor, the type of liquor I drank. But, I realize nowadays it's not that big a deal. I mean, I guess eating acid at 5, not many people did that. But, people are drinking and using drugs earlier and earlier. I was speaking in L.A. a couple years ago now. It's been 4 or 5 years, and they had a 10-minute speaker. Kind of like what Joe was trying to be, I think. I don't know. But and she was talking about when she was 5 years old, she smoked pot with her parents, man. She was smoking 5 years old. She's about my age. I got up there and I was like, damn, baby, where were you? I was tripping. You were stoned. We could have had fun, And I heard another story about a kid in Bakersfield or L.A., somewhere down that way, like kindergartner, young kid, man. He came home from school and told his mom he'd learned a new word from the big kids. And she said, ooh, what word did you learn from the big kids? He said, She said, She said, well, how do you spell it? He goes, I don't know, Mom. She said, you learned this word from the big kids. What was the context of it? How did the big kids teach you this word? He said, that's easy, Mom. They went like this. Oh, there's some potheads out here. I'm not a pothead, man. I didn't like pot at all. That does not mean if you went, I didn't go, thanks, because I would, because pot gets me out of here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I'm angry, and pot chills me out, I don't like it, though. I mean, I don't like the munchies, I don't like cottonmouth, I don't like vegging out, I moved out on my own at 17. You smoke a doobie at 2 in the morning, get the munchies, go to the refrigerator. What do you got? Ketchup packets from McDonald's. That's what you got, But you got the munchies, so you eat them anyways, and they help with cottonmouth too, don't they? Or Top Ramen. You remember Top Ramen, right? Everybody knows Top. I wish gasoline was like Top Ramen. Top Ramen was 10 cents a pack 30 years ago. It's still 10 cents a pack, I don't understand. Or macaroni and cheese. You might have a little macaroni and cheese, right? What's the problem with macaroni and cheese? You don't got any milk, you don't got any butter, that's right. But you got those ketchup packets, so you mix it all up and you eat it, I didn't like pot. My best friend, though, back in high school, Ronnie D, man, his dad was the dealer in town, and he had the best pot. He had the best stuff. And back in the old days, man, pot used to have seeds in it. Some of you newcomers might not know about this. It really did. It used to have seeds in it. We used to have to break it up on these things called record albums, these big fat-looking things. And you break it up, and then you tilt them up, and you get the seed, and then you roll. And if you were lucky, you had a shoebox top, and then that caught all the seeds, you know. But speed, no, I didn't like speed. I'm a neat freak as it is. I do not need speed to help me clean my house, you know. And I do not enjoy the sensation of my eyes beating me into the next room. You know, no, I didn't like it. No, you know. Cocaine, no. Cocaine, I didn't like the high on cocaine. I didn't like that coming down feeling on cocaine. I didn't like the expense of cocaine. You know how many fifths of Jack Daniels I can buy with what you pay for that cocaine? A lot. So I'll buy the Jack Daniels. You hand me a mirror with some rails lined out, and I'll snort it. Sure, because it gets me there. It gets me out of here. I don't want to be here. But I didn't like it much. Now, acid. Now, acid was... I liked acid, man. Acid was cheap. It was quick. It was easy. I guess it was like reliving my childhood. The problem with acid is you cannot take acid and convince even yourself that you're maintaining. But see, at 18, I joined the military. And in the military, they got tests. They catch you using drugs. They kick you out, man. So I quit using drugs. Just like that. I'm not an addict. You know, and if I would have known, 35 years ago, and someone would have gone, and I would have gone, man, you know what? In 35 years, I'm going to be at this podium of an AA meeting, and someone's going to get pissed off if I talk about marijuana. So you know what? No thanks. I didn't know. So I went, thanks. That's what I did. I didn't know. I mean, that's my story. That's what I did. But I joined the military, and I quit using drugs immediately. Backing up, as I said, growing up, I slit small liquor and Southern Comfort, and then at about the age of 14, I matured into whiskey. Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, Old Crow, whatever. Whiskey. I like whiskey straight up, man. And the reason I like whiskey straight up, other than the fact that I'm an alcoholic, was that's what John Wayne drank, man. That's what Clint Eastwood drank. Real men drink whiskey, The Outlaw Josie Wales, one of the best movies of all time, About 2/3 of the way through the movie, Josie Wales walks into this ghost town and walks in the bar, and they say, "What'll it be, partner?" And he says, "Whiskey," straight up. And they laugh, say, "Partner, we've been dried up for years." So Josie Wales, a.k.a. Clint Eastwood, leaves the bar, and then he kicks open those saloon doors, and then he got a case of whiskey in one hand and a bottle of whiskey in the other hand, and he's the man. They love him. He gets the girl, he kills the bad guys, he rides off into the sunset, and he wins all the way around, And I wanted to be just like Clint, But in the real world, it's assault and battery with a suspended sentence. That's what the real world is. You don't always get the girl. You don't always, And John Wayne, if John Wayne would have walked into the bar and said, pass the crack pipe, partner, he'd have a different speaker, because I'd be over in NA, man. But John Wayne didn't ask for a crack pipe. He asked for whiskey straight up, and that's what I drank. Whiskey got me out of my head. Whiskey made me feel good. Matchbox 20 has a song called Push. It starts out, I don't know if I've ever been good enough. I'm a little bit rusty. I feel like my head is caving in. I can relate to that. I never felt good enough. Never felt good enough. And the thing is, for me, though, it wasn't going to be my head caving in. It was going to be someone else's, because I would go one of two directions when I drank. And I drank a lot. And I would either get really, really, really romantic, or really, really, really violent. Now, to get romantic, you got to have a willing partner. To get violent, you don't. You just hit somebody, and it's on. I grew up on the beach in San Diego, Mission Beach, Pacific Beach, and there was a boardwalk, and we used to cruise on the boardwalk with our bikes. Back before they were even mountain bikes, they didn't have speeds on them. They just one speed. You just cruise on the boardwalk, And we like Coors beer because Coors, didn't matter if it was cold or hot, it tastes the same. And we'd have that on our handlebars. And I was talking, what we used to call it, we used to get basted. Anybody heard that before? Basted, It's like basted. In the hot sun on the beach drinking beer, you just get basted. It's like wasted, but kind of like what you do with a turkey when you put it in the oven, But, I grew up on the, like I said, on the beach, and to get violent, you didn't have to have, You didn't have to have a willing partner. And so I went that way a lot, and and Jack Daniels, it got me out of my head, and it filled that hole. It made me feel good enough. And I, can you imagine going to a high school dance sober? I know, it's hard. The Al-Anons are going, sure. No. I can't imagine going to a high school dance sober. But if I did, and I asked the girl to dance, and she says no, I'm rejected. I'm useless. I'm worthless. Why am I even bothering to breathe anymore? I walk away feeling lower than a mole. Now change that scene and have a little bit of Jack Daniels. And you walk over and ask that girl to dance, and she says no. It's like, well, you look lonely, bitch. I just wanted to help you out, And then, and what's the next? So then you're angry, right? So then what happens? Then some other guy goes and asks that same girl to dance, right? And she goes out and dances with him, right? So then what? You go up and hit him. That's what. It's on. Bam! No one's going to ask you to dance again, are they? But then they get kicked out of the dance, so, go drink some more. But I never felt good enough. I would come home. I did well in school. I'd get A's. I did well. I get A's in academics and U's on citizenship. You remember A's? And usually you get an AE. I got AU's. Unsatisfactory. I was kicked out of 4 schools, expelled. Do not bring your son back to this school ever again. That's after the suspensions. This is, expelled. Don't bring your son back. And I got, like I said, expelled for fighting or for various different things, but angry all the time, and I've forgotten where I was going to go on the trail. Oh, the A's, the A's. So I get A's. Thank you. I'm glad my wife's here. I'm always glad she's here, actually. But the A's and U's, and I'd come home with an A on a test. Let's say I'd come home with an A. Let's say a 93, 94. Pretty good, yeah. My mom would say, that's good, but if you would have done it like this, you'd have got a better score. I'm like, man, I look back on it now, and I'd done the work on it and all that stuff. But 4 nights ago, this last weekend, I called my mom, just to be a good son, what you've taught me to do. You've taught me to do this. I don't really want to talk to her. I really don't. But I called because I want to be a good son and say, hey, Mom, how you doing? Maybe, and Jacqueline, my wife, was right with me. And we talked, and I was doing okay, I don't know. And then I said, hey, Mom, my wife and I have 4 kids, one of them, and I said, hey, Mom, Emily, one of our daughters is going to school down in San Diego. I said, Mom, Emily got a scholarship. She got a $1,000 scholarship. My mom said, I'm disappointed. Do you know there's over $500,000 worth of scholarships out there, and she only got 1,000? Jacqueline had to pry my hand off her leg because I was so angry, But that's what My dad left when I was 2 or 6 months. I don't know. It depends on which one you talk to. My mom or him, I was a $90 a month check to him for 20 years. He didn't even know I turned 18. My mom wasn't going to tell him, hey, don't send any more checks. No, he sent checks till I was 20 because he didn't know I turned 18. I would have never looked him up. My wife found him, and he's okay. I've done the work on Dad, too. He's come and heard me speak a few times, and but there is a lot of anger. I learned through inventory that not having a dad in my life, sure, I didn't know about certain things. I didn't know what to model after. I didn't have a dad as a model. I didn't know how to be a dad, and it took inventory work, and a guy named Ralph W. I heard him share at a meeting one time, and I went, whoa. And his brother, Tony? Daniel, I don't know, I just met, but anyways, his brother, both of them talk about their dads, and same thing. Not having a dad had a huge influence on my life. Here in Alcoholics Anonymous, you taught me how to be a dad, I got text just recently, just tonight, from my kids saying, good luck, Dad, because they knew I'd be up here talking at 8 o'clock, and I'll talk more about family in a bit, but, so I never felt good enough. My mom, I love her. She's done the best she could. I get it. I'm in. I understand. I've done the work. It still sucked. All right. That song goes on, that Matchbox 20 song. It says, I don't know if I've ever been really loved by a hand that's touched me. I'm a little bit angry and something's going to give. And see, I can relate to that too. Because I never felt loved, for whatever reasons, my relationships in high school and beyond were 30 and out, 30 and out, 30 and out. Why? Because at 30 days, she's getting close to me. And if she gets close to me, she's going to hurt me. Therefore, I will sabotage the relationship before I let her get close. 30 and out, man, 30 and out. You know, she'd say something like, you know, that shirt doesn't match those pants. And I'd think, time to get another one. Because that's criticism. She's criticizing me, therefore she doesn't like me, therefore I need to move on. You know, and that's what it was like for me, you know, as I grew up. And never, now we just celebrated, my wife and I, 24 years of time off for bad behavior, but which I might get into, I don't know. But, you know, and we're more happily married than we've ever been. Ever in our 24 years, man. Thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous and the program of Al-Anon. Absolutely no question about it, you know. And I'll talk, like I said, I'll get to family in a little bit. But so at 18, I joined the military, got out of the deal, joined the military, and went into the Army, went into a thing called Special Forces, also known as the Green Beret. Now, why would that be? Yeah. John Wayne was a Green Beret. That's right. John Wayne was a Green Beret. If John Wayne would have been a Navy SEAL, I'd have joined the Navy, man. But John Wayne, or he would have been Air Force, I would have joined. No, John Wayne was a Green Beret, so I was a Green Beret. Now, I have been corrected by folks a little older than me that have said, you know what, John Wayne was a Marine before he was a Green Beret. Well, I didn't see that movie, man. I saw the Green Beret. That's why Ed became a Marine, because of John Wayne. So I went in Special Forces, and it was a great, you know, the Army, the slogan back then was, it's a great place to start, and for me it was. You know, I got money to go to college from the military, got a good experience, went overseas, met my wife. She wasn't in the military, but I met her on a train. I was going from San Diego to Salinas to go to language school in Monterey, and she got on the train in L.A., and we met on the train. We got to know each other through snail mail. This was before, back in 81, you know. Snail mail, we got to know each other, and one thing led to another, and here we are 24 years later. But the military was a great place to start. And the other thing, though, is the military introduced me to country music, man. Country music, you know. I grew up on the beach, as I said, and you know, for me it was rock and roll. You know, who the hell listens to country music? Don't raise your hand. I was in Bakersfield, and everybody raised their hand. You know, I thought, you know, Hicks, man. That's what I thought. Hicks listened to country music, and I was like, but in the military, I got turned on to country music. And I tell you what, I don't know, Sacramento, I think there is traffic up here. I tell you what, if you can't make it to the meeting on time, put it on the country music station. Because they got it all there. They got it all. Of course they got it. Everybody knows about country music for drinking. I mean, Willie Nelson, you know, I never went to bed with an ugly woman, but I sure woke up with a few. You know, you can change the gender if you need to, you know. Or Whiskey River, you know, or there's another one, not a few years old now, but Whiskey Lullaby, you know. He put the bottle to his head and pulled the trigger, you know. Oh, I can relate to that, you know. But, and there's that, you know, I got home, but you changed all the locks because I got home at the wrong 5 o'clock, you know, and more and more. And I tell you, if there's any addicts in the audience, if there's any addicts out there, you know, Hank Jr.'s got you covered. He's got one, he says, she told me she loved me, and I told her I'd do her the same, but I OD'd in Denver, and I just can't remember her name. So if you're an addict, there's country music there for you, you know. And we get sober in country music. Toby Keith's got a song. I sobered up, and I got to thinking, you ain't as much fun since I quit drinking. Don't sing that one around the Al-Anons, man. The Al-Anons not too hip on that one. And the newcomer song. There's a newcomer song. I want to talk about me. I want to talk about I want to talk about number one, oh my, me, my. So, you know. So if you can't make it to, you know, if you can't make it to the meeting on time, put it on a country station. But I tell you what, the other thing though that I got turned on to, and you know what, I bet up here, and especially in the audience this size, but probably there's a number of you that like country music. I got turned, because somewhere you go, 1 or 2 people in the audience know this guy. But here, let's see. I got turned on to a guy named David Allan Coe. All right, a few. Yeah, not as many as I thought. David Allan Coe, man. See, I love David Allan Coe. And now, I'm not, if you go to a website, I'm not talking about his racist, sexist songs. That's not what I'm talking about. He had a few more mainline songs. And it was about 8 years ago, I was writing about it, and I figured out why I like David Allan Coe so much. And the reason I like David Allan Coe so much is because he sings about pain, heartache, and betrayal. You know, you trust a woman, she's going to hurt you, basically, is what he sings about. You know, love is a never-ending war. You know, march me into action, I'm well-trained for what's in store. Oh, yeah, I can relate to that. Or I hate love. I can relate to that one a lot. I hate love more than anything else in life. I hate love, you know. And another one he's got, you know, it hurts to sing it, but, you know, to say it. But he got one, you know, he said, now I lay me down to cheat on the woman I love so. and I could relate to that, I mean, even though he loves this woman, he's going to cheat on her, and you could crank Dave Valencoe loud and drink with him and just, yeah, me too, man, me too, and he says there's been so many scars on this old heart, piece by piece they've torn it apart, and I could just relate to Dave Valencoe so much. So the military turned me on to him, and I still listen to it today. If Jacqueline and I get in a fight, I throw in a David Allen Coe CD, man. But I got out of the military in '85, went to Cal Poly, started going to school, got sober, stark raving sober, and went to the Psych board and changed, became a whole new man. As I said, I got involved in service. Actually, I don't know if I said that yet. I got involved in service. I started secretarying a meeting. Someone else nominated me to secretary of the men's stag, the one that's now my home group, the Tuesday night. I became the grapevine rep for the district and just got involved and got involved and got involved and got out of myself, and became happy. Became actually a guy that people liked, didn't mind seeing when I walked up. I mean, you remember in high school, you remember most attractive, most likely to succeed, most athletic. Remember those awards? If there would have been a most likely to end up in a penitentiary, it would have been me, hands down, no question about it. And you know what? They would have been right, of course, because, I used to work at the United States Penitentiary in Lompoc. Convict in the back going, damn, I thought he looked familiar. I used to work there. And, that's where I first met Penny. That's where I met Glenn Loyster, Jim Estelle, the guy that's going to talk here tomorrow. Because what happened when I worked there through a series of events, I thought to myself, God, what am I doing in a penitentiary? Who works in a penitentiary? Losers, man. Losers work in penitentiary. Because staff are more dangerous than inmates in that penitentiary. I'm telling you, I'm serious. I am serious. And it's not a psych penitentiary. It was a regular penitentiary. But so through a series of events, what I was doing in the penitentiary is the psychologist came to me. When I first started, I broke my anonymity to the psych department. I said, here's who I am, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'd love to help out. And they go, oh, no, you can't let the inmates know you're an alcoholic. They'll use that against you. They'll hide some booze in your locker or something, or I'm like, okay, whatever. A few years later, he came to me and approached me, and he asked me if I'd like to help out with their AA, and I said, sure. So I started helping with the H&I behind the scenes, working in there. It helped. There was one guy who got denied. And because he had done time back in '69, murder, but still he'd done time. But '69 he got out, and he got denied. And I went to the captain and I said, hey, look, sir, this guy, he did time, but this is exactly the kind of guy we want. Look, he's been sober 22 years, let him. So the captain said, all right, bring him in 4 times on a memo, and if he does well, we'll badge him. And that was 6 to 8 years ago, and he's still going in there, weekly or monthly at least, somebody. But, I started bringing in people, and then in 1995, the warden called me to his office, and he said, you're a fine accountant, Lee. I got no problem with your work, but, I've been watching you, and you know what? You're more valuable to me working with these guys one-on-one. How would you like to be a drug treatment specialist? And I said, you know what, sir, thanks. I appreciate it. I appreciate you seeing it, but, I do this for fun and for free. I do it to keep sober myself, because he knew I was in AA. And so thanks, He says, no, you don't understand. I'm the warden. Tomorrow you report to psych services. And I was dying. I was like, I can't do this. I can't. I can't get paid to do this. And I was crying in meetings. I wrote New York, called people. I didn't know Penny yet. And then someone in a meeting said something that made all the difference. She said, you know what, Lee, you're not being paid to do 12-step work. You're being paid to help make 12-step work available. I was like, oh. See, because what started with 1 meeting a week that was occasional, we ended up with 5 meetings a week. 5, And on the first Saturday of the month, we brought in speakers, big speakers, and we brought them down from here, Penny. That's where I met Penny. We brought in Jim. That's Glenn. I mean, all of them. Anybody. Started with Bob E., Bob Earl. It's like I was listening to a talk of Bob Earl on the tape, and he talked about going to the Lompoc Penitentiary 25 years ago when the AA sponsor was a practicing alcoholic Catholic priest. And I thought, I wonder if he'd like to come in again. So I called him, and we said, sure. So, through a series of events, I got him scheduled to come in, and it kind of took off. Well, what happened is there was a meeting on the street. I mean, to do this quickly, but there was a meeting on the street, a first Saturday of the month speaker meeting, local speaker meeting. And in November 1995, the secretary said, this is the last meeting of the group. The church is kicking us out. We're done. Through a series of events, I found a place for the church meeting to go. I called the secretary, and I said, hey, I got a place for the meeting. He said, hey, Lee, as far as I'm concerned, that meeting is closed. If you want it, you can have it. Okay. Well, Bob had been scheduled to come into the penitentiary in October of 95, but we had a riot in October 95, so we locked down when he was supposed to come in. So I rescheduled him. When he was rescheduled was the first Saturday of December. So I called him up. I said, hey, you know what, you're coming in with me on the penitentiary that night. How would you like to speak that night at this new meeting I just inherited? And he said, sure. So a meeting that had 20 people in November had 300 in December. And it took off from there, you know. I mean, it just took off. And it blew me away. I learned so much from that, you know. It just blew me away. And I realized, you know, people would thank me for getting the flyer. I'm like, wait a minute, you know what? Penny signed up for the flyer, and she's the one who mailed it to you, but thanks, you know. And I realized it's okay to accept thanks and praise for my part in what we've accomplished. You know, as long as I remember it's an us thing, it's we, I'm cool. You know, as soon as I start thinking it's about me, then I lose, you know. And so the penitentiary deal was really good for a long time. And like I said, we had 5 meetings, and we had an NA meeting. We started an NA meeting on Monday nights and brought in the NA, and I called NA in Ventura, and I said, I'd like to start an NA meeting up here. And they said, NA only, right? Yeah, man, no AA, right? Oh, yeah, NA, man, NA. So we got an NA meeting, and strictly NA. And it was great, you know, and then through a series of events, wardens changed, and I became, well, anyways, I'll get to that. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. How's that? You can probably relate to that. And so things happened, and I ended up losing that job, which I'll get to maybe. But, and currently, of those guys, 10 of them are out. Let me say this. When I was working at the prison, of the guys that I kept track of that left, that were not in the program, 99% of them came back, all right? Now, they might not have been alcoholic either. I don't know, because they weren't coming to AA. Of the guys that were in AA that got out, 100% of them stayed out. None of them came back until recently. Just recently, one of the guys got out. I just found this out because I'm still in contact. Now that I don't work there, I write them. I'm in contact with my sponsor, one of the guys in the FCI in Phoenix, Shane, actually. He's from up here. Some of you guys might know Shane M. because his old sponsor's up this way. But anyways, I'm still in touch. So one of the guys, you know, ended up drinking again after he'd gotten out. But for the most part, you know, AA worked. AA works in prison too, and they got great meetings. It's good. It was good stuff for a long time. So anyways, if they'd have nominated me, most likely I'd have been in a penitentiary. They'd have been right. And so I got out of that penitentiary though, and now I'm doing some other things. But you know, I told you I'd talk about family. I got to talk a little bit about family because family's important for me. It's family disease. There's no question, right? I mean, it's family disease. Now, how we get to be alcoholics doesn't matter. Whether we inherited it, learned it, whatever, I don't care. And for me, it's family recovery. You know, when I see there was a woman over here with the guy, throw me off if I'm talking, yeah, it probably will. But, you know, my wife's here. She'll get me back on track, you know. No, I'm serious. You know, so if, you know, wherever the kids are, you know, I know it bothers some people. You know what? We'll take the kid out then. You know, if you can get to meetings all the time on your own without having a kid, help that parent out maybe. And I don't mean to get on a soapbox, but I mean, come on. I've done it. I walk what I talk. I've done it. I have done it. And one of the most warm feelings I've ever, well, that's, what's that? It's exaggeration, but a good feeling at my home group or Sunday night speaker meeting. There's a bunch of young mothers, young teenage mothers that they were bringing to the speaker meeting, and the baby started crying one time in the back of the room, and the mom was trying to get the baby, and I went over and I said, here, I'll take her outside, and the little, she'd never met me before, and she kind of looked at me, and she's a Latina young lady, and she's like, and the people around her go, hey man, he's cool, don't worry, he's got 4 kids of his own, and she let me take her baby outside, you know, while she enjoyed the meeting. So I walk what I talk. I'm not just, you know, I mean, it's because I get to meetings almost as much as I want to. But for me, like I said, family disease, family recovery. My kids usually come with me when I talk somewhere. This weekend is my wife Jacqueline, and you know, they've heard me talk many, many times. It reminds me of a story I heard about some convicts. The H&I work in death row. They were state convicts. So they were up this way, Folsom or somewhere, but they were on death row. And through H&I, folks like you and me, they got sober, you know, in Alcoholics Anonymous through H&I in that prison on death row. And they became model prisoners. And the warden noticed it. He went to the first convict and he said, you know, I see that you've changed and you've become a good model inmate. And, you know, I'd like to do something before your time comes. What can I do? And the first convict said, you know what, warden, if I can carry the message to anywhere else on the compound, to another inmate, to another wing, I would really appreciate it. The warden said, I'll see what I can do. Went to the second convict, asked him the same thing. What can I do? The second convict said, execute me, warden, immediately. If I got to hear his story one more time, you know, And the reason I bring that up, because one time I was talking I was speaking in Goleta, which is like an hour south. It's by Santa Barbara, hour from my house. I was taking a sponsee with me that night, actually. And he called last minute and he canceled. He said, I can't go, Lee. So I went into my son, who was playing on his Nintendo, or PlayStation, I guess it was. He was playing his PlayStation game. And I said, Jeremiah, I'm going to go talk down in Goleta. You want to come with me? He didn't even look up from his game. He said, convicts, Dad. Death row. I'm the second one. Swear to God. I went to Thousand Oaks one time, brought my daughter Emily with me, and I got there and I couldn't find the place. I was supposed to some church somewhere. I couldn't find it, and it hit me. It really doesn't matter, the meeting would have gone on. They'd have just picked someone from the audience. And Joe, really, you could have eaten your dinner, and they'd have just picked someone else to come up here. I'll tell you, But they the same thing for me. That they would have found some. They didn't need me at that meeting, But I realized I had 2 hours with my daughter in the car down there, and I got 2 hours with my daughter on the way back. And in the end, I did find the meeting and did the deal. But my daughter Jessica, who's almost 18 now, but when she was 9, 10, 11, she had more commitments at meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous than most alcoholics do, man. Penny can state for that and vouch for that, because she used to, at that speaker meeting on the street that I had, it was only the first Saturday of the month, Jessica was the bell ringer to let people know that it was time to come in for the meeting and after the break, and then she was the person that sold the tapes, in the back. And one month she got invited to go to an overnight birthday party on the first Saturday of the month. And she wasn't sure what to do. She asked Jacqueline, what should I do? And my wife said, go, baby, go ahead and go. And Jessica came over to me and asked me the same thing. Dad, what should I do? And I said, Jessica, it's okay. Go be with your girlfriends. It's okay. And she looked at me and she said, but Dad, I have a commitment. So I asked her to sponsor me. I was like, damn, I got guys that I sponsor that don't show up at that meeting because there's a girl, and here my daughter, so she came that night and she did her deal and we dropped her off at 10, and she didn't miss a beat. Those girls were up all night anyways, Another time we went and, after school to pick them up. It was in 6th grade, because of school it was at. And it was a hot, nice summer day, and all the kids were out on the playground, or I guess not summer, but nice day. And all the kids were on the playground, and I couldn't find Jessica. And one of the teachers said, I think she's over in the kitchen. Okay, so I went over to the kitchen, and there was Jessica with one of the other teachers washing cups. And the teacher saw me, and she came running over, and she said, she's not in any trouble. She volunteered to help. I said, I know. That's Alcoholics Anonymous in my life. That's my kids, My son Jeremiah, one time, a few years ago, he had a cough. So he tried to get him to take the Robitussin. And parents out there, Robitussin comes now with a nice little shot glass on the top of it. So we're trying to get him to take this Robitussin. He wouldn't take it. And finally, my wife or I said something. He said, all right, I'll take it. So he took that little shot of Robitussin, swirled around, held it up, and said, more. So I bring my kids to meetings. They know where to go. A few years ago, Jessica and Jeremiah, those are my two youngest, they were at a birthday party for one of their girlfriends or boyfriends, one of their friends, I don't know who, and they sang happy birthday. My two said, keep coming back. I'm like, no, not here. No, Currently, Emily's in India on an exchange program. Jeremiah's in Brazil on an exchange program, and Jessica just got back from Italy and France, and that's Alcoholics Anonymous. It's not through AA they went there, but actually Emily, I'm going to have her look up meetings in India, because Alcoholics Anonymous taught me how to be a dad. Alcoholics Anonymous taught me how to be a husband, Alcoholics Anonymous taught me to be a decent kind of guy, and then I realized that some of you don't like me no matter what I do. So I'm not going to, amen, go your way. What other people think about me is none of my business, which is normality. Which reminds me, too, some of the stuff I say, I don't know how much of it anymore. Because remember I told you I want Penny to be my sister? I consider her my sister. Penny has been there for me more times than I could count. And she's got this thing called AWSI, As We See It. So she sends out these cool little ditties every day, on a weekday, and when she's at, I don't know when, weekdays. And they're cool, One of them one of my favorite ones is never say blah, blah, blah. When just blah is enough. And the recent one she sent out was, I have found, she quoted, I forgot who she gave credit for the guy, but I have found that my character defects don't really go away. They just go into remission. And I like that one too, But anyways, so I get a lot from that. And I'm proud to say that I have an AWSI back when it was in booklet form, before she got computerized. I have one that she gave me 10, 15 years ago. Maybe not that long, but a long, long time ago. So, a lot of this stuff. So Norm Alpe's one who said, what other people think about me is none of my business. I realize when I leave here, no matter what I do, wherever I go, a third of the people are going to like me, a third of the people aren't, and a third aren't even going to remember me, And what Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me is to be one of the third that do like me. And maybe the percentages are better, especially now that I've been more sober, working the steps, doing the deal. I don't know, but I just try to be the best person I can, and I learned it through Alcoholics Anonymous. My wife and I, like I said, have been married 24 years through some hard times and good times. We've done the best we can. There have been some poor choices we made, and in our marriage early on, and some stuff came and it hit in 2003. In 2003, here's my life. We had a murder-suicide in our immediate family. One of my wife's brothers killed his other brother and murdered and suicide. My grandmother died. My stepmother died. Then I found out that was in October, November. In January, I found out I was going to lose my job. In April, we separated, my wife and I. And in May or so, a pit bull chomped my cat's head down and killed it, That's in 6 months. That's my life, That's everything. That's separate. Marriage, death, job. The top three, all of them. Boom. Like a catapult. Hit me hard. And you know what we did? We got involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. Or I did. She got involved in Al-Anon. And we got really active in a lot of different things and working with others primarily. H&I got involved in juvenile hall. Got involved anywhere I could helping with Alcoholics Anonymous. When the stuff first kicked, when my wife and I first separated, I was speaking that week, like in Wednesday in this Carpinteria, Friday in Palmdale, and Saturday in San Diego. And I called my sponsor. I'm like, I can't go. And he's like, oh, your life gets a little tough and you cancel your commitments. No. No, you go. You keep your commitments. But they didn't come there to hear your pain and woe. You don't whine up there on the podium. What you do is you tell your story, and when you get to the end, you tell them what you're going through. And so that's sort of what I did. And if anybody heard them early on when we were separated, especially, I apologize. Those are terrible talks. I did a bad job sharing some of the things I shared from the podium, and I'm wrong. If you have one of those tapes, please burn it. And I'm serious. Because, I said my wife and I are more happily married now than we've ever been. Seriously, from the heart we are. We've worked through things, And the bottom line deal was this: God and sponsorship. Because what happened is 2 weeks before the divorce was going to be final, 2 weeks, I got ready to get on my knees before bed to go to say my prayers. And it was 11:30 at night. And every night I get on my knees and say my prayer. It was 11:30, and I thought, you know what? I got to make my coffee. Or I got to, do this or do that. Read my 2 pages. I told you I didn't used to read the big book. Now I read 2 pages a day, absolutely no matter what, which I might, if I have time, I'll talk about. But, I had to do whatever. So at 11:30, I got up off my knees, went and did what I had to do. And then at 12:15, I got on my knees to pray. 12:15 a.m. And while I was on my knees that night, and my prayer was something to the effect of, God, please let Jacqueline know that I'll always love her. Always. But I can't be with her, God. And you know that, and I know that. That was about my prayer. 15 seconds, 10 seconds, something like that. In those 10 seconds, when I was on my knees at 12:15, 45 minutes later than I was supposed to be on my knees, my cell phone rang, and it was Jacqueline, my wife. And I had told her to quit calling, and she did. We hadn't been in touch for a while. And she called at 12:15, and to me that was God. To me that was God. And then I started thinking about the reconciliation word, the big R, and I called my sponsor, and I talked to him about it. Because you know what? What it was, what will people think? That's what it was. John Wayne wouldn't get back with her. John Wayne would shoot her and get another girlfriend, right? But no, and I talked this is sponsorship. My sponsor said, Lee, if you think God wants you to get back with her, you must get back with her. And, here we are. We reconciled almost immediately, and, it's been tough. We've worked through it, though, with sponsorship, Alcoholics Anonymous, and Al-Anon, We've gotten through it. So enough on that. That's enough on that one. But we worked through it. For 5.5 years, I worked half a step. On December 10th, 1987, I admitted I was powerless over alcohol. But my life unmanageable? No. What the hell are you talking about, man? I was an ex-Green Beret. I had a wife, 2 kids. I had a 3.8 GPA at Cal Poly. I was loading trucks for UPS in the morning and going to school during the day. My life unmanageable? Hell no, man. No way. Well, then it hit me that people who are managing their lives well, they don't end up in the psych ward at French Hospital. That's not where they go. And so I started thinking, well, maybe my life is a little unmanageable. I got it. But that second step talks about being restored to sanity, and also talked about God a little bit. Came to believe that power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Well, first of all, to be restored to sanity, you've got to be insane, right? I'm not insane, so therefore I don't need to be restored to sanity because I'm not insane. Because remember, I wasn't listening to you guys, and I wasn't paying any attention. I wasn't asking for any help. And to me, insanity was any early Jack Nicholson movie that you want to talk about. You know, The Shining or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You know, that was insanity, and I wasn't like that. So, well, then I started listening in meetings, and somebody said something, and that helps, and I paid attention. And what she said was, I'm a big football fan, like Tom over there with the Chargers. I'm a Charger fan to the max, and I've got my ringer on to remind me, getting close to time. So I'm a Charger fan to the max, and what she said was, you know what, get a case of Coca-Cola on Sunday morning, and while you're watching the football game, drink that case of Coca-Cola. I'm like, ooh, that's sick, man, that's sick, that's crazy, that's insane. She goes, right, okay, we'll make it Coors or Budweiser. And I was like, oh, okay, that's doable. It's like, oh, well, that's insane thinking. And I go, oh, okay, all right, so that's what that insane thinking is. Okay, but then, you know, then we're in that God thing. See, for 5.5 years, I started raving sober, and I used to share that the only reason I didn't get drunk those first 5.5 years is I got lucky. You know, I got lucky. Why did I stay sober, start raving sober, but sober, and other people go in and out? I got lucky. And that's what I believed. And after meeting one day this guy, a youngster, newcomer, Catholic Brian was his nickname because he was a very religious man. And he came up to me and he said, you know what, Lee, you didn't get lucky. He said, you had a God in your life looking out for you, and you didn't even believe in him. And it hit. That was my first spiritual experience. I went, whoa. If he'd have said it a week earlier, a day later, I don't know, because he said it when he said it, and it hit for me. That was my first spiritual experience. But, you know, my mom had taught me that there's no such thing as God, that people who believe in God are weak, and therefore, you know, they're useless people, and they're stupid to believe in God. And that's what I believed. And I came in here, and you people were talking about God, like Joe had talked. I didn't want to hear about it. I didn't want to hear about God until that experience of mine right there. And someone else started talking a little bit about getting on your knees and praying. And I'm like, I don't know about that, you know. You tell me one movie John Wayne got on his knees, you know. Not one, you know. Clint Eastwood was a preacher in Pale Rider. He didn't get on his knees once, and he was a preacher, you know. Real men don't get on their knees. Well, someone said something that made all the difference for me, and she said, or he, whatever, put your shoes underneath your bed. I know it's an old one. It's an old gimmick, but there's people in here maybe haven't heard it yet. But she said, put your shoes underneath your bed, and while you're down there, God bless you, while you're down there, on your knees, put your shoes underneath your bed, say a quick prayer. And I thought, well, you know, I could do that. So I drew the shades, locked the door, and put my shoes underneath my bed and said a quick prayer. And it made a difference for me, you know. It made a difference for me. And this, you know, that's what I did. Now, I got one of them is visual, so I can't do it at this podium tonight. But, you know, there's a couple, if you don't got a bed off the ground or you don't have shoes or whatever, there's a couple other techniques. You know, one of them, you know, people usually when you pray, you think about putting your hands in front of you like this and getting on your knees. And that's how I do it. I get on my knees and I pray with my hands in front. You don't have to put your hands like this. You could put your hands out like this. Get on your knees and pretend there's a toilet in front of you. You know, I could get on my knees for a toilet monthly at least, you know, easily, no problem, no qualms whatsoever. But I had trouble getting on my knees for God, you know. The best analogy I've ever heard to the third step, Joan Osborne. Joan Osborne has a song called One of Us. And in that song she says, if God had a face, what would it look like? And would you want to see if seeing meant you'd have to believe? That's the third step. If God had a face, and you could look at it, but if you looked, you would have to believe, would you look? And if you just said to yourself, well, yeah, then you're willing to believe. That's all you got to do. It says in the big book, willing to believe. I told you, I didn't read it at all. I read 2 pages a day, absolutely no matter what. And I know the book. No, I'm not trying to impress you. Do not, you know, are you impressed? No, there's people drunk know the book better than I do. You know, it's just a tool. It's a tool. You know, and I bring this one with me a lot. This is the first edition, first printing of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a reprint of the cover, but the book itself was given to me by a man named Jack Prose. Some of you guys might remember Jack. Jack got sober in September 1946. In 1990, Jack I met through the penitentiary at Lompoc. I brought him into the penitentiary. And I do these historical talks at the San Fernando Convention every year, and Jack was one of my sources. And in the 1999 convention, Jack did the old-timers meeting. He led it the way Joe did tonight. And then after the meeting, he got up. This book was up there like this. And after the meeting was over, he got up and he said, I'm going to stray from format for just a minute. And he said, this book has done me well the last 52 years. I want to give it to a man I think will use it well the next 52 years. I want to give it to Lee C. And I was in the audience just like you guys. I had no idea. He hadn't told me. And in front of about 3,000 people, I got up and I couldn't even say my name's Lee. I'm an alcoholic because I was crying. I couldn't even say it. I couldn't believe this doesn't happen to me. You know what? Because of Alcoholics Anonymous, it does. Because of Alcoholics Anonymous, it does. And I know. Some of you right now, I'm sitting up here talking about God and talking about the big book, and some of you are thinking to yourselves, chapter 4. Chapter 4, Lee. What's chapter 4? We agnostics, right? You're some up here talking about God, higher power, and you're thinking chapter 4. You see, you're like me. You have that inherent ability to look at the title of a chapter and know what it's all about, therefore not have to read it, right? No. Chapter 4 does not tell you how to stay sober and remain an atheist or agnostic. That's not what it does. What chapter 4 says in 3 short words is, change your mind. Basically, that's what it says. There are other ways to stay sober without a higher power of your understanding. But in Alcoholics Anonymous, you got to find a higher power of your understanding, whatever it should be. God, it could be Buddha, Jesus, Allah, all those things. It could be light bulb. It could be rock. It could be doorknob. It could be anything you want. The only thing is, if you have a rock for a higher power, absolutely, amen, go for it. Just think of that rock with a capital R, because it's now your higher power. That's fine. Anybody working a program will not make fun of you. Anybody working a program. The reason I say it that way is I read an article in the Grapevine many years ago about a woman in the East Coast who shared about her God in meetings. And when she shared about her God, people snickered and laughed at her. Because when she talked about her God, she talked to her in a feminine. She had a female God. You know what? If you got a female God and she keeps you sober, keep her, man. Don't let anybody take you away from her. Because if you got a female God and she keeps you sober, that'll be fine. So I know, you're like me. I know. The other thing, too, though, is, if you go to that chapter, and it talks about to live a spiritual life or die an alcoholic death are not always easy alternatives to face. To who? To who? Go stand outside of Walmart and ask people as they walk out, hey, if you could live a spiritual life or die an alcoholic death, which would you choose? The people look at you and go, huh? And they keep on walking until the alcoholic came. The alcoholic would come up and he'd say, well, just how bad an alcoholic death are we talking about, And see, you're like me. I came in here and I didn't want to hear about God. And I went up to the Yosemite Mountains and I was praying and yelling and screaming and I looked over my shoulder and there was a bear behind me, a big old grizzly bear, and I started running. And I didn't want to, the bear was chasing me. I looked over my shoulder and the bear was chasing, and I looked over my shoulder again and I fell down and here I am, atheist, agnostic, and this bear's getting ready to eat me, and I yelled out, oh, God, please. And everything stopped, lightning in the sky, the bear froze, and I heard a voice and said, oh, Lee, you're in trouble. Now you call my name. Now you believe in me. And I'm like, yeah. And he said, so I give you faith. You have faith in me now. And I thought, but man, if I go back to those AA meetings and start talking about believing in God or a higher power of my understanding, they're going to make fun of me. They're going to think I'm a hypocrite. So you know what? No, God, I don't want to, make the bear believe, all right? So God said, all right, and lightning struck, and the bear brought his paw down and said, thank you, God, for the food. And I got the hell out of there, Point being, no one will make fun of you. If you came in here hating God, not wanting to hear about God, you know what? We love you. We will give you everything we got to help you stay sober. And any God of your hunt, we'll say, congratulations, right on. Very good. One of the last few things I'll talk about is service. I told you a little bit about the pen. Not even going to talk about the things I do because I don't do them for you to know about them. I don't care if you know about them or not. But I tell you this, service has made all the difference in me. Other than, that's not true because steps, God, everything, my wife, sponsorship, all of it. The service has been a key thing to it, and I used to write alcoholics all over the world, Nepal, the Philippines. I used to write a guy in the Philippines that his meeting was his P.O. box. People like you and me would write him, and he'd come in from the jungles, check his P.O. box, and that would be his meetings, In the beginning, I wrote only men, because, I didn't want my wife getting a letter going, hey, what the hell is this, from some female somewhere, But, in the end, I started with some of the people I wrote were females, and just because that's the only meeting they got, and lots of other things. One of the things I heard, is with regard to service, what really helps me is that The fragrance of the rose lingers on the hand of he who casts it. The fragrance of the rose lingers on the hand of he who casts it. That might be Shakespeare, it might be Penny Pennington, I'm not sure which. But it's so true. You know, I don't be of service. I don't do the things I do to get what I get. I do it to be of service. You know, because being of service makes me a whole person. I'm involved in the Rotary. Rotary is a lot like AA, only they drink. You know, and they're a service organization. And a couple weeks ago, I was sitting down, and I sat at the table first, and on my left-hand side, a judge sat next to me. He sat next to me. I didn't make noise. Hey, judge. Hey, you know. He chose to sit next to me. On this side was a bank president. On this side of me. And I looked at him. I went, damn. You know when that would have happened before? The bank president would be testifying against me. That's when that would have happened before. You know. And I having lunch with that same judge a few weeks ago, and he got a call, and he had to leave. He had to leave lunch to go sign a search warrant. You know, I'm like, damn, I'm having lunch with people signing search warrants now. You know, and it's all from being of service. You know, I learned to be of service in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, and I love it. I love it. Alcoholics Anonymous is like a big swimming pool. Like the way these chairs are set up. You know, and if you look at the swimming pool of Alcoholics Anonymous, you see people in there swimming really, really well. You know, they're doing beautiful breaths. They're getting to the end of the pool. They do a kick turn with hardly a splash, and they look good. They look good, and we newcomers want to be like that right now. You know, we want to swim like that right now. I know. I wanted to be the main speaker at the second speaker meeting I ever went to, man. But they don't go, hey, you angry guy, you want to talk? No, they don't do that, man. You know, that's not how it happens. You know, and there's people in the pools doing the side stroke and the dog paddle and the backstroke, and there's people that are out there just treading water, man. And you know what? We'll give you everything we got to help you stay afloat. That guy, and you'll do the same for me. And we do it for each other all the time. That guy was 7 months when he told me he had a God in your life looking out for you, and you didn't even believe in him, kept me afloat that day, that time, that night. You know, we'll give it to you for fun and for free. But see, you got to stay in the pool. You know, you can't get out of the pool. And you can't read about swimming and learn to swim. You can't watch it on the computer, virtual swimming. You can't learn to swim while you look it on the pool. You can't plan to swim tomorrow. It's chapter 6. Chapter 6 is called Into Action, not into thinking about and in planning to do tomorrow. It's into action, you know, setting up the chairs, picking up the cigarette butts, doing whatever it takes, you know, to be of service. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, we'll help you. We'll help you stay afloat. Alcoholics Anonymous has made me a father to children who love me. My oldest daughter, Julianne, who I hadn't talked about yet, a few years ago when I was going through all the hell I was going through in 2003 and 2004, Julianne came up to talk to me, my oldest daughter, who's almost 23 now, and she said, you know what, Dad, she was 4 when I got sober. She goes, you know what, Dad, I don't remember the difference from you when you were drinking to not drinking. You know, she was too young. She goes, but you know what, Dad, I do know the difference in you when you hadn't worked the steps to having worked the steps. You know, it's the biggest testimony there could ever be to working the steps. My daughter saw it in me. My kids love me. Julianne, I was speaking in Palm Springs one time, and I got up to speak, like Joe introduced me tonight, and Julianne was 16 at the time, so 7 years ago. She reached over, she was sitting next to me, she reached over and she kissed me on the cheek, and she said, good luck, Dad. You know, that's Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, a 16-year-olds don't want to hang out with Dad normally. You know, mine don't mind. You know, mine don't mind. Alcoholics taught me to be a dad. Alcoholics Anonymous taught me to be a husband, to be a good man, a person, you know, to not have to make you wrong for me to be right. I don't have to be right all the time. What is one of Penny's things is something, even though I may be right, my attitude might not be, or I can still do damage by my attitude. I think that's how it goes, you know. And so I learn all these things in Alcoholics Anonymous. And you stick around, you work the steps, get a sponsor, be of service, do the deal. Alcoholics Anonymous will help you grow too. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous you can learn to walk on water with Alcoholics Anonymous. It starts when your sponsor says, hey, grab that mop and come here. You know? Service, steps, sponsorship, and God. It'll do it. I appreciate the chance to be up here tonight. God bless you. I love you. And stay in the pool.